The Lost Hope. The alien council shrieked in horror as Forax banged his head on the cryocamber controls, green blood oozing from his battle wounds. The war was lost. The insectoid Xin had ravaged 100 worlds, slaughtering trillions. This ancient derelict Dyson sphere was the Denobulan Empire's last hope. Forax's heart pounded. The year was 2478. The Denobulans had fought the Kin for centuries, but now defeat loomed. Forax had led a desperate covert mission into the shattered Dyson sphere, praying to find firstborn weapons to turn the tide. Discovering the ancient warriors, exploring the ruins, Forax's team had accidentally triggered hidden cryopods. Row after row of eerily humanoid creatures hung in perfect stasis, actual humans. Historical archives said the firstborn uplifted humans, granting them wondrous abilities before the firstborn vanished. Under the crumbling Terran hegemony, pure humans were thought extinct, their incredible power fading into myth. An ominous countdown blared. The pods hissed open, releasing plumes of icy mist. Forax glimpsed the lead human's nameplate, Gerald Cooper. Muscles rippled beneath pale skin as the human's eyes flicked open, blazing with fierce intelligence. Everything would change now. The Kin would learn to fear humanity once more. But would these ancient heroes fight for Forax's cause, or would they become an even deadlier threat? The survival of Forax's entire species hung in the balance. First contact. The cryopod doors swung open with a prolonged hiss, clouds of vapor spilling onto the ancient metal floor. Gerald Cooper's eyes snapped open as he sucked in a deep breath, the icy mist still clinging to his bare skin. His enhanced senses immediately kicked into overdrive, assessing his surroundings in milliseconds. Strange alien life forms stood before him, reptilian, and covered in iridescent green scales. Cooper's squadmates were already exiting their own pods, moving to flank him with a lethal grace that belied their centuries of stasis. Cooper counted 12 of his brothers and sisters in arms and 8 of the unknown creatures. The lead alien was tall and muscular, but Cooper noted the subtle trembling of exhaustion and pain. Green blood dripped from multiple wounds on the creature's body. It had seen heavy combat recently. Cooper stepped forward, the mist curling around his legs. "What year is it? Who are you, and why have you awakened us?" He barked in the alien's own language, an archaic dialect of what his HUD helpfully labeled as Denobulan. The alien leader looked taken aback at Cooper's fluency, his slitted eyes widening. "I am Commander Forax of the Denobulan Empire. The year is 2478 by your reckoning. Our people fight a desperate war for survival against the Kin. We need your help." Negotiating terms. Cooper absorbed this information, his enhanced cognition already sifting and analyzing. He shared a look with his squad, reading their facial expressions and body language. A consensus was reached in seconds. "My team and I will fight for you on 2 conditions," Cooper declared, his voice hardening. "I will take full command of our combined forces, and in return, you will help us discover what became of the rest of humanity and the firstborn who created us." Forax hesitated, clearly torn. Cooper could see the war raging behind those reptilian eyes. The Denobulan was backed into a corner, and he knew it. Finally, Forax nodded curtly. "Agreed." Cooper allowed himself a tight smile. "Then let's get to work. We have a war to win." Training and preparation. The journey back to Denobulan space passed in a blur. Cooper and his soldiers spent every waking moment training their new alien allies in advanced combat techniques, pushing them to the limits of their abilities. In the privacy of their own quarters, the humans planned their first strike against the Kin, poring over star charts and intelligence reports. Cooper felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, the eager anticipation before a mission. He thought of his fallen brothers and sisters, the once mighty Terran hegemony now reduced to myth and legend. He thought of the firstborn, the godlike beings who had elevated humanity to the heights of power, only to vanish. Cooper didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. The Kin would soon learn to fear the wrath of humanity once again. He would not rest until he uncovered the truth of what had happened to his people. The scent of battle was in the air, and Gerald Cooper was ready to meet it head-on. The first strike. Planning the assault, Cooper and his team, quickly dubbed Firstborn's Fury by the Denobulans, hit the ground running. They worked around the clock with Denobulan engineers, poring over ancient Firstborn schematics recovered from the Dyson Sphere. Together, they rapidly developed cutting-edge stealth systems, energy weapons that made Denobulan pulse rifles look like pea shooters, and AI-enhanced combat exoskeletons that turned each soldier into a one-man army. The Denobulan factories churned day and night, mass-producing the new tech. Cooper pored over star charts and kin troop movements, searching for a vulnerability to exploit. His eyes locked onto a heavily fortified asteroid base, the main resupply hub for the kin invasion forces. There, Cooper jabbed a finger at the hologram, looking up at Forax and the Denobulan High Command. That's where we strike. We hit their supply lines, and the kin offensive grinds to a halt. Forax shifted uneasily, his scales rippling. That base is a fortress. They'll have hundreds of ships guarding it. Even with your new weapons, a frontal assault would be suicide. Cooper's lips curved into a predatory smile. Who said anything about a frontal assault? The raid begins. The joint human Denobulan stealth frigate, Shadow of Fury, glided through Kizan space like a wraith, its advanced cloaking systems rendering it all but invisible. On the bridge, Cooper sat in the command chair, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. 60 seconds to drop, the helmsman reported, his voice tight. Cooper stood, rolling his shoulders, his combat exoskeleton humming with barely restrained power. Get us in close and prepare for a hot drop. We hit them hard and fast before they even know what's happening. The Shadow of Fury drifted silently over the asteroid base, hovering above a seldom-used maintenance airlock. Cooper and his super soldiers gathered in the drop bay, checking weapons and sealing helmets. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the drop bay doors yawned open, revealing the pitted surface of the asteroid below. Cooper leaped out, followed closely by his team and Forax's hand-picked Denobulan commandos. They plummeted through the airless void, landing on the airlock with barely a sound. The outer airlock door peeled open like a tin can as Cooper ripped it free with his exoskeleton-enhanced strength. Alarms began to blare as they stormed inside, but it was already too late for the Xin. The super soldiers tore through the base like a force of nature, their energy weapons cutting down Xin warriors with ruthless efficiency. Cooper was a blur of motion, his plasma sword carving a path of destruction. Forax led his commandos in Cooper's wake, securing key objectives and planting demolition charges. Facing the enemy, Cooper rounded a corner and stopped dead, his eyes widening in shock. A massive Kizan mech, filled with weapons and armor, loomed over him. The mech was 3 times his size, but Cooper didn't even blink. He ducked under a swipe of its giant claws and leaped, his plasma sword flashing. The mech's head tumbled to the deck, sparks fontaining from its severed neck. Cooper landed in a crouch as the mech collapsed behind him, his face a mask of grim satisfaction. The raid was over in minutes, the asteroid base reduced to a smoldering ruin. The Shadow of Fury slipped away as silently as it had come, leaving devastation in its wake. News of the daring attack spread like wildfire. The kin supply lines crumbled, their advance faltering. But even as the Denobulans celebrated, Cooper knew the war was far from finished. The Emperor's wrath. Deep in kin space, the Emperor seethed with rage at the humiliation. He would make the upstart humans and their Denobulan allies pay for this insult. The kin war machine turned its sights on the heart of the Denobulan Empire itself. The kin fleet struck without warning, hundreds of warships descending on the Denobulan core worlds like a swarm of locusts. Planetary defenses, caught off guard, crumbled under the onslaught. The Denobulan navy scrambled to respond, but they were outgunned and outmaneuvered at every turn. On the bridge of the Shadow of Fury, Cooper watched the tactical displays with a growing sense of dread. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. The Shadow of Fury shuddered as another volley of Kin plasma fire slammed into its shields. On the bridge, Cooper gripped the arms of the command chair, his eyes locked on the tactical display. Shields down to 30%. The tactical officer reported, his voice tight with tension. Cooper's mind raced, analyzing the battlefield with the speed and precision of a quantum computer. The Denobulan fleet was in shambles, their ships outmatched and outgunned by the Xin dreadnought. A desperate gamble. "We need to take out that lead dreadnought," Cooper said, his voice calm and controlled. "It's their command ship. If we can knock it out, it'll throw their whole fleet into disarray." Thorax, standing at Cooper's side, shook his head. "We'd never get close enough. Its defenses are too strong." Cooper's lips curved into a tight smile. "Not for my team." He turned to the comms officer. "Patch me through to the hangar bay." A moment later, the faces of Cooper's super soldiers appeared on the interface, their expressions grim and determined. "Listen up," Cooper said, his voice ringing with authority. "We're going to launch a boarding action on that Xin dreadnought. Our goal is to capture the bridge and take out the command crew. It won't be easy, but I know you're up for the challenge." The super soldiers nodded, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. They lived for this, the thrill of battle against impossible odds. The boarding action. The final assault. As the soldiers suited up and boarded their fighters, Cooper turned to Thorax. "I need you to keep that dreadnought busy. Buy us as much time as you can." Thorax nodded, his scales rippling with apprehension. "We'll do our best. But Cooper, be careful. We can't afford to lose you." Cooper clapped Thorax on the shoulder, a gesture of camaraderie and respect. "Don't worry about me. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve." The hangar bay doors yawned open, and the super soldiers' fighters streaked out into the void, their engines flaring with blue-white light. Cooper took the lead, his mind already racing ahead to the battle to come. The Kin dreadnought loomed before them, a massive wedge of armor and weapons, bristling with menace. Its point defense lasers opened fire, filling the void with crisscrossing beams of searing light. But the super soldiers were ready, their enhanced reflexes and precognitive abilities allowing them to weave through the deadly web of lasers with uncanny grace, their fighters dancing and spinning like leaves in a hurricane. Infiltrating the dreadnought. Cooper spotted a weakness in the dreadnought's defenses, a small thermal exhaust port that led directly to the main reactor. He fired his plasma torpedoes, which streaked through the void and slammed into the port with a blinding flash of light. The dreadnought shuddered, its shields flickering and fading. Cooper's fighters darted in, landing in the hangar bay like a swarm of angry hornets. The super soldiers leaped from their cockpits, plasma rifles at the ready. Hidden warriors, caught off guard, fell before their onslaught like wheat before a scythe. Cooper led the charge, his movements a blur of speed and precision. He could see the Xin's moves before they made them, his precognitive abilities granting him an unbeatable edge. They fought their way to the bridge, leaving a trail of broken Xin bodies in their wake. The bridge doors loomed before them, heavily armored and bristling with gun turrets. Cooper didn't even slow down. He leaped, his body a coiled spring of muscle and cybernetics, and smashed through the doors like they were made of paper. The Emperor's last stand. The Kin Admiral, a massive brute with razor-sharp claws and teeth, whirled to face him, but Cooper was already moving, his plasma blade flashing in a deadly arc. The Admiral's head tumbled to the deck, his body crumpling like a puppet with its strings cut. "Secure the bridge," Cooper ordered, his voice hard. "And somebody find me a damned prisoner to interrogate. We need to know what the Kin are planning." It didn't take long for the super soldiers to subdue the remaining Kin crew. Cooper stood before a cowering Kin officer, his plasma blade humming inches from the alien's throat. "Where is your staging area?" Cooper demanded, his eyes boring into the Kin's. "Where are the rest of your forces massing for the invasion?" The Kin, trembling with fear, spilled everything. Cooper listened, his face growing grimmer with every word. When the kin finally fell silent, Cooper turned to his soldiers. A new mission. We have to move fast. The Xin are gathering their forces for a final push. If we don't stop them now, the Denobulan core worlds will fall. Thorax, listening in over the comm, spoke up. What do you propose? Cooper brought up a holographic map of the kin staging area, a massive asteroid field on the edge of Denobulan space. We infiltrate their main fleet and sabotage their ships. Take out their engines, weapons, life support. Cripple them before they even have a chance to launch. Thorax's scales rippled with unease. That's a suicide mission, even for your team. Cooper's eyes flashed with grim humor. Suicide missions are our specialty. But we'll need the Denobulan fleet to launch a coordinated attack once we've sown some chaos. Can you rally your forces in time? Thorax straightened, his voice firm. We'll be ready. Just give the word. Preparation and farewells. As the super soldiers prepared for their most dangerous mission yet, Cooper pulled Thorax aside. There's something you should know, he said quietly. I've been having flashes of memory from before the cryo sleep, and there are gaps, big ones, that I can't explain. Thorax frowned. What are you saying? Cooper shook his head. I'm not sure. But I have a feeling there's more to this super soldier program than we've been told. And the firstborn, their disappearance doesn't add up. There's a piece of the puzzle we're missing. Thorax laid a hand on Cooper's shoulder. We'll find the answers, my friend. But first, we have a war to win. Cooper nodded, his teeth gritting with determination. The fate of the Denobulan Empire, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Failure was not an option. The hidden facility. Infiltrating the kin fleet. The infiltration of the kin staging area was a tense and nerve-wracking affair. The super soldiers, with Cooper at their head, slipped through the asteroid field like ghosts, their stealth technology rendering them all but invisible to the Xin sensors. They split into teams, each with a specific target. Cooper and his hand-picked squad were tasked with taking out the Xin flagship, a massive dreadnought bristling with enough firepower to level a planet. As they approached the behemoth, Cooper felt a familiar tingling at the base of his skull. His precognitive abilities, honed to a razor's edge by the firstborn's genetic enhancements, were warning him of danger. He signaled his team to hold position, his eyes scanning the seemingly empty void around them. There, hidden among the tumbling asteroids, was a kin stealth fighter, its weapons already locking onto their position. A desperate dogfight. Cooper reacted with lightning speed, his plasma rifle flashing in the darkness. The stealth fighter exploded in a brilliant burst of light and shrapnel, but the damage was done. Alarms began to blare across the kin fleet as they realized they were under attack. Change of plans. Cooper barked into his comm. We're going loud. Hit them with everything you've got. The super soldiers burst into action, their weapons blazing as they darted among the kin ships like deadly fireflies. Explosions bloomed in the void as they took out engines, weapon systems, and life support with ruthless efficiency. But the Xin were quick to respond, their own fighters swarming out to meet the attackers. Cooper found himself locked in a desperate dogfight. His enhanced reflexes pushed to their limit as he wove and dodged through a hail of plasma fire. A lucky shot clipped his wing, sending his fighter spinning out of control. Cooper gritted his teeth, fighting against the G-forces threatening to crush him into his seat. With a supreme effort of will, he brought the fighter back under control, just in time to see a kin warship bearing down on him, its weapons glowing with deadly intent. The final push. Cooper didn't hesitate. He fired his remaining torpedoes, watching with grim satisfaction as they streaked towards the warship's bridge. The resulting explosion was so bright it left afterimages dancing in his vision. But there was no time to celebrate. The kin flagship loomed before him, its hull bristling with gun turrets and missile launchers. Cooper knew he had only one chance to take it out. He opened a comm channel to the rest of his team. All units, converge on my position. We're going to ram that flagship with everything we've got." There was a moment of stunned silence, then a chorus of acknowledgments. The super soldiers, battered and bleeding but unbroken, formed up around Cooper's fighter, their faces grim with determination. Together, they accelerated towards the flagship, their engines screaming with the effort. The Kin, realizing their intent, threw everything they had at them, filling the void with a storm of missiles and plasma. But the super soldiers didn't falter. They wove through the deadly barrage with impossible grace, their minds and bodies working in perfect unison. And then, with a final defiant roar of engines, they slammed into the flagship's hull, their fighters crumpling like tin cans. A Pyrrhic victory. For a moment, there was only silence and darkness. Then, a series of massive explosions ripped through the flagship's hull as the super soldiers' antimatter bombs detonated, setting off a chain reaction that consumed the mighty warship in a blinding flash of light. In the chaos that followed, the Denobulan fleet struck, catching the Kin off guard and in disarray. The battle was fierce and bloody, but with the super soldiers' sabotage and the Denobulan courage, the tide began to turn. And on the bridge of the Shadow of Fury, Thorax watched with a mixture of awe and trepidation as the Kin fleet crumbled before their onslaught. The super soldiers had done the impossible, but at what cost? He could only hope that Cooper and his team had somehow survived, that their sacrifice had not been in vain. For in the wake of this victory, Thorax knew that the true battle was only just beginning. The questions Cooper had raised about the Firstborn and the super soldier program weighed heavily on Thorax's mind. He had a feeling that the answers they sought would lead them down a dark and dangerous path, one that could shake the very foundations of the galaxy. But for now, there was only the flush of victory and the bitter tang of loss. The Denobulan Empire had been saved, but the price had been high. And as Thorax stared out into the starry void, he couldn't shake the feeling that their true enemy was still out there, waiting in the shadows. The Architect's betrayal. The aftermath. Thorax stood on the bridge of the Shadow of Fury, his eyes fixed on the display as the ship emerged from hyperspace. The familiar stars of Denobulan space filled the screen, a welcome sight after the harrowing journey to the Firstborn facility. But the homecoming was bittersweet, the weight of Cooper's sacrifice hanging heavy on the hearts of all aboard. As the ship docked at the orbital station, Thorax and the surviving super soldiers were greeted by a delegation of Denobulan officials, their faces a mix of relief and sorrow. News of the team's heroic actions had spread quickly, and the entire empire mourned the loss of Cooper and the fallen soldiers. Integrating the technology. In the days that followed, Thorax and the team worked tirelessly to integrate the recovered Firstborn technology into the Denobulan fleet. The advanced weapons and defensive systems were a game-changer, allowing the Denobulan forces to push the Kin back to their home systems with unprecedented speed and efficiency. Reeves, his face still bearing the scars of the final battle, oversaw the training of Denobulan soldiers in the use of the new technology. Cooper would have wanted this, he said to Thorax as they watched a squad of recruits running drills with the enhanced combat exoskeletons. He always believed that knowledge should be shared, used to protect and serve. Whispers of discontent, but not all Denobulans shared this sentiment. As the dust of war settled and the Empire began to rebuild, whispers of discontent began to surface. Some saw the super soldiers as a threat, their enhanced abilities and foreign origins a source of fear and mistrust. In the halls of power, factions emerged, each vying for control of the Firstborn technology. Some, like Thorax, believed it should be used for the betterment of all, while others saw it as a means to solidify their own power and influence. Thorax found himself caught in the middle, his loyalty to his people tested by his promise to Cooper to carry on the Firstborn's legacy. He spent long hours in meetings and debates, arguing passionately for the responsible use of the technology. But even as he fought for unity, Thorax could sense a growing darkness at the heart of the Denobulan government. Whispers of secret experiments and hidden agendas reached his ears, and he began to fear that the firstborn's gift may have been a curse in disguise. Uncovering the truth. Reeves, too, sensed the growing threat. His enhanced senses, honed by years of combat and training, picked up on the subtle signs of treachery and deceit. He began to investigate, using his skills and the resources of the super soldiers to uncover the truth. What he found was a web of lies and betrayal that reached to the highest levels of Denobulan society. A secret cabal, led by a shadowy figure known only as the Architect, had been working to seize control of the firstborn technology for their own nefarious purposes. Reeves brought his findings to Forax, and together they realized the terrible scope of the conspiracy. The Architect planned to use the technology to create an army of enhanced soldiers, loyal only to him, and to use them to overthrow the Denobulan government and establish a new order with himself at the helm. A plan of action. Forax was torn, his heart heavy with the knowledge that his own people could be capable of such treachery. But he knew that he could not stand idly by and allow the firstborn's legacy to be perverted in such a way. Together with Reeves and the remaining super soldiers, Forax hatched a plan to stop the Architect and his cabal. They would strike fast and hard, using the element of surprise to their advantage. But even as they prepared for the final confrontation, Forax couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing into the Architect's hands. The cabal's influence ran deep, and they had eyes and ears everywhere. In the end, it was Seto who discovered the terrible truth. The Architect had been one step ahead of them all along, and the confrontation was a trap. The cabal had no intention of using the firstborn technology for their own gain. Instead, they planned to destroy it, along with anyone who knew of its existence. The final battle. Forax and the super soldiers fought bravely, but they were outmatched and outnumbered. One by one, they fell, until only Forax and Reeves remained. In a final, high-stakes endeavor, they managed to corner the Architect in his own laboratory. But the mastermind had one last trick up his sleeve. With a cruel smile, he activated a self-destruct sequence, intending to take the firstborn technology and all knowledge of it to his grave. Reeves, seeing no other choice, made the ultimate sacrifice. He tackled the Architect, using his enhanced strength to hold the villain in place as the countdown ticked down to 0. Forax, his heart heavy with grief, fled the laboratory just as the explosion ripped through the complex. He watched from a distance as the flames consumed all evidence of the firstborn's existence, along with the last of his comrades. In the aftermath, Forax knew what he had to do. The galaxy was not ready for the firstborn's knowledge, not yet. The wounds of war were still too fresh, the scars of betrayal too deep. With a heavy heart, he gathered what remained of the super soldier team and placed them back into cryosleep, hidden away in a secret location known only to him. He vowed to watch over them, to keep them safe until the time was right for their return. And so, Forax found himself alone, the sole guardian of a secret that could change the course of the galaxy. He threw himself into the work of rebuilding, using his influence to steer the Denobulan Empire towards a path of peace and cooperation. But always, in the back of his mind, he carried the memory of Cooper and the sacrifice he had made. He knew that one day, the galaxy would need the super soldiers again, and when that day came, he would be ready. Years turned into decades, and decades into centuries. Forax, his lifespan extended by the firstborn technology, he had integrated into his own body, watched as the galaxy changed and evolved around him. Empires rose and fell, wars were fought and won. And through it all, Forax remained a silent guardian, waiting for the day when the galaxy would be ready for the return of the firstborn's legacy. And then, in the midst of their shared dream, they found themselves somewhere else entirely. A vast, ethereal realm stretched out before them, a place of shimmering light and endless possibility. And there, waiting for them, were the spirits of the firstborn themselves. A new purpose. Reeves, his dream self still bearing the scars of his final battle, stepped forward, his eyes wide with wonder. What is this place? he asked, his voice echoing in the strange, infinite space. One of the firstborn, a tall, luminous being with eyes that held the wisdom of ages, smiled gently. This is the realm beyond realms, the place where the guardians of the galaxy may find rest and counsel. Sato, her dream form as lithe and deadly as ever, frowned. But Cooper, he sacrificed himself. How can he be here? The firstborn's smile grew wider. Cooper's sacrifice has elevated him beyond the physical world. He now serves as a guardian of the galaxy alongside us, watching over the countless lives he fought to protect. Reunion. As if on cue, a familiar figure emerged from the light, his form both solid and translucent at the same time. Cooper, his face free of the lines of worry and strain that had marked his final days, grinned at his old comrades. "It's good to see you all again," he said, his voice warm with affection. "I wish it were under better circumstances." Reeves, his heart swelling with a mix of joy and sorrow, stepped forward to clasp Cooper's hand. It felt solid and real, despite the dreamlike nature of their surroundings. "We thought we'd lost you," Reeves said, his voice thick with emotion. Cooper shook his head. "I'm always with you, in spirit if not in body. But now you have a choice to make." The firstborn's offer. The firstborn, their forms pulsing with gentle light, spoke as one. "You have fought bravely and sacrificed much. Now you may choose to join Cooper and us in our eternal vigil, watching over the galaxy from afar. Or you may return to the physical world, to awaken when the need is greatest and continue your fight for justice." The super soldiers, each lost in their own thoughts, pondered the choice before them. To ascend to a higher plane, to find peace and purpose in the afterlife, or to return to the never-ending struggle, to the blood and sweat and tears of the battlefield. The decision. One by one, they made their choices. Some, weary of war and longing for a rest that had always eluded them, chose to join Cooper and the firstborn. Others, their sense of duty and hunger for justice still burning bright, decided to remain in cryo-sleep, ready to awaken and fight another day. As the dream began to fade, the firstborn's parting words echoed in their minds. "Your sacrifices have not been in vain. The galaxy will always need guardians, and you have proven yourselves worthy of that mantle. Until we meet again, in this life or the next." Reeves, the last to make his choice, looked to Cooper, his eyes shining with unused tears. "I'll see you on the other side, brother. But not yet. There's still work to be done." Cooper, his form already fading back into the light, nodded in understanding. "I'll be watching over you, always. Give them hell." Reeves. A new beginning. And then the dream was gone, and the super soldiers were once again alone in their cryopods, their minds and bodies frozen in time. But now they had a renewed sense of purpose, a knowledge that their struggles were part of something greater. Years turned into decades and decades into centuries. The galaxy changed and evolved, new powers rising and falling like the tides. But through it all, the super soldiers slept on, waiting for the day when they would be needed once more. The call to action. That day came sooner than anyone could have predicted. Thorax, his scales dulled with age and his eyes heavy with the weight of centuries, stood before the cryopods, his heart heavy with dread. A new threat had arisen, a powerful alien race that sought to dominate and enslave all other species. The Denobulan Empire, once a shining beacon of hope and progress, had fallen into decay and corruption, unable to stand against this new enemy. Thorax, his claws shaking with age and emotion, reached out to activate the cryopod's release sequence. "Forgive me, my friends," he whispered, his voice cracked and feeble. "I had hoped to let you rest, to spare you the horrors of another war. But the galaxy needs you now more than ever." With a hiss of escaping gas and a flurry of blinking lights, the cryopods opened, and the super soldiers emerged, their bodies as strong and vital as the day they first entered stasis. Reeves, his eyes blinking in the sudden light, looked to Thorax, a question on his lips. But Forax, his face grim and determined, spoke before Reeves could give voice to his thoughts. There is a new evil in the galaxy, one that threatens to destroy everything we have fought for. I have watched and waited, hoping that the younger races would find the strength to stand against it. But they have failed. And now the responsibility falls to us once more. The final battle. The final scene shows the super soldiers charging into battle, their eyes blazing with the light of the firstborn, their weapons flashing in the darkness of space. They knew that their struggle would never truly end, that there would always be another enemy to face, another wrong to right. But they also knew that they were not alone. Cooper and the firstborn watched over them from afar, lending their strength and guidance to the fight. And in each other, they had found a bond that transcended time and space, a brotherhood forged in the fires of war and tempered by the weight of their shared destiny. The galaxy would never know true peace, but as long as the super soldiers stood watch, it would never fall to the forces of darkness and oppression.